Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Chiefs Digest Live, our live Q&A on Tuesday nights with myself, Matt Derrick, our good friend Nick Jacobs from 41 is the Mic, and KSHB will be joining us a little later. We are here to answer your questions and talk about anything that you've got going on, anything you want to know about the Chiefs. Fired up, and if Nick and I know, we will share with you our answers. Been pretty quiet, but at least we got a little bit of Chiefs news and involvement this week. Obviously, Monday there was some stadium development news. The Kansas Legislative Coordinating Council extending the deadline for the Star Bonds, keeping both options in Kansas and Missouri open, which was all the Chiefs wanted for now, was to keep the options open. No real progress or indication about what the Chiefs are going to do, where they're going to land. Everybody's got some opinions. There's some thoughts out there. We'll probably break it all down. Any questions that you obviously have about the stadium and where that progress is, we will talk about that. Also, the Chiefs on Monday announced that they've got a title sponsor now for what they are calling the Kansas City Classic, the opening game, which will be on August 28th. Nebraska Cornhuskers and the Cincinnati Bearcats at Arrowhead Stadium, GEHA Field. What the Chiefs and Mark Donovan hopes is going to be not just an annual game, but he wants to see multiple games at Arrowhead Stadium, and talked a lot on Monday about what they're doing as far as trying to put this together, what they learned from hosting the games with Kansas last year of having multiple games at Arrowhead, and what that could mean going forward. We'll see if it works. We'll see what kind of crowd that they get for Nebraska and Cincinnati. The Chiefs and Battle Sports, their sponsor for the Kansas City Classic, seem to be willing to put some money into this in order to get teams to give up a home game and come to Kansas City to play some college football. Obviously, right now, first game with Nebraska, that's a regional opponent that they're hoping will be a good draw. They are planning on pulling from that other regional opponents, but Mark Donovan told me that he's shooting bigger. He's looking for national games. So we'll see if Kansas City one day may be able to snag like a season opening game. Oregon and Alabama, who knows? I mean, I don't think you're never going to be able to get some conference games, but some interconference games, that's possibility. We'll see what happens there. But we're going to talk about Trey Smith at some point. We'll see how quickly. I know the question's already in the queue, so we'll see how quickly we get to the Trey Smith question. Like I said, Nick will be joining us a little bit later, so drop in your questions, fire away, and we'll just try to have a good fun time the evening. As always, we'll go until the questions are done. So I know it's kind of a quiet time. A lot of people are traveling, so we'll see what happens tonight, but appreciate you all joining us. And if you need to pop in your question and take off, totally get it. You can always watch later and catch up on everything. Luttrell, any chance for some Hy-Vee fines today? Oh, we've got some Hy-Vee fines. There will be absolutely no doubt about that. I don't know if Nick will be fresh from Hy-Vee when he comes in here, but I do know I'm reliably told that there are some Hy-Vee fines, at least in stock. So if there aren't any fresh fines today, there's a couple of things that Nick has noticed that he will be sharing with us. So, Chris, did Mahomes ever have that dinner with Fonzie? Good question. I don't know. I mean, both pretty busy guys. I don't know if either Mahomes has been able to make it out to where Fonzie lives, or if Fonzie's come back to Kansas City. But hey, it seems like Henry Winkler's a big fan. He wants to have it happen at some point. So I don't know. And maybe waiting until that he can have Henry Winkler into the restaurant and at 1587. And that's maybe the way that you want to do it right. Chris, what is more bleak looking, the second half of the Royals season or the chances that Smith and the Chiefs agree to a long-term contract? Hey, Royals are rallying. 5 of their last 7? Starting to hit the ball a little bit. A couple of home runs the other night. Got to be a little excited about that. But more fireworks from the Royals right now than there has been from Trey Smith and the Chiefs. And Cody's got it too. So gonna rip the Band-Aid off. Trey Smith news. It's too quiet. It is, Cody. Not gonna lie. I've generally in these situations I say no news is good news, but when you get this close to a deadline, no news is no news. We are a week away. July 15th is going to be the deadline, so we're less than 7 days away now. 3 p.m. Central Time on July 8th will be the deadline. So, and if nothing gets done by that point, then Trey Smith will play under the franchise tag this year. There will not be any new deal during the season. The teams will have to wait until after the 2025 season concludes before they can work on a long-term deal. I mean, technically, they can work on a long-term deal. They just can't sign or agree to anything. A lot can change during a season, obviously. So once you get to July 15th and you get to 3 p.m., the deal's off. I mean, Trey Smith is playing under that deal. He's going to get the $23.4 million. It's a decent deal for him. It's a decent deal for the Chiefs. I don't think it's the deal that either side wants. What we don't know, what we haven't gotten into, we haven't gotten either side to show their hands. And I don't know once we're past the deadline, if there's no deal done, if we're going to get either side to show their hands and what's on their mind. Because here's the thing. I mean, $23.4 million for Trey Smith and then having to go out and play 17 games in a postseason to get it and then hope to hit free agency again next year and get the contract he wants. That is a risk. I mean, you would like to get some money. Now, I get it if the Chiefs are, talking to Trey Smith. We don't know that the two sides are talking. I mean, there's obviously, hey, both sides have indicated they want to get something done, but we just haven't gotten either side to come out and say, hey, we're talking. There's discussions that are going on. Looking at my phone, I just saw Jack Caglione crushed a ball out of Kauffman Stadium. So hopefully that kid can get things turned around and fired off because he's a talent. He's just been struggling. So would like to see him be able to get things going there. But with Trey, the $23.4 million is nice. But what you want is you like more guaranteed beyond that year. But I get it. I mean, if the Chiefs, and we don't know if the Chiefs and Trey's camp are technically talking, maybe they've exchanged numbers, maybe they've talked about it, maybe they've talked about talking about things I'll say, at this point, Brett Veach has a pretty good reputation for being a deadline negotiator. He kind of, I think, likes that. He likes to be in that situation where not necessarily up against it, not backed into a corner, but he likes it where it's not a long-term situation where you're sending deals back and forth, and you get the chance to kind of if you're. I don't know that he would express it this way, but the way I interpret it is that, hey, if you're changing numbers in March and you got a deadline in July, there's just the possibility of just sending numbers back too many times before the numbers just get out of control and other things get done. I mean, and can change things. Now, obviously, at this point, not a lot of my other deals, and there hasn't been anything that necessarily has changed the market. I mean, I think right now, if I'm remembering correctly, and I can pull it up here real quick and see. Let's see if I thought I had it up earlier. But we're talking about, as far as guaranteed money for the guard market. If you're Trey Smith, here we go. Got that right there. The top guaranteed money, $48.2 million. That's what Chris Lindstrom got from Atlanta. Hey, if you're Trey Smith, you want that much money. I mean, if the Chiefs are offering third most money we'll go with fourth because that's Will Freeze, $34 million with the Vikings. I mean, if the Chiefs are offering $34 million and you're Trey Smith and you're getting guaranteed 23.4 right now, and a second franchise tags get you 28, I would see why you would say nope, need a little bit more money than that. I always expected that, based on the Lindstrom deal and the expectation that if Trey Smith was going to sign, he was going to sign a deal that gets him to be the highest paid guard in the league right now. I expected, and here's another thing, because, you think about Chris Lindstrom deal, he was 26 when he signed that deal. Trey's 25. So he's still got the advantage of youth, and that's the advantage too. I mean, if he gets a deal, 3-year deal, he can go back and be a free agent at 28. That's the best of all possible worlds. But again, I mean, if the Chiefs aren't offering, that kind of money, if they're not offering the 44 million that Robert Hunt got and close to the 48 that Chris Lindstrom got, I fully expected that, hey, Trey was going to be maybe a $50 million guy. And it might even maybe take 50, 54, 55 to get it done. I mean, I think 50 should be able to get it done. And if 50 doesn't get it done, then I can see if you're the Chiefs, you're maybe walking away. Now, I know we get talk about this every year, and everybody says, hey, what's $1 million or $2 per season if it takes to get Trey Smith done? Well, I mean, that's a player. And remember, Nick and I, we talked about this on the 41 is the mic this week, which if you haven't listened, really gets into how the Trey Smith contract is the domino for everything else, and that the Chiefs want to do that. If they can get something done with Trey Smith, it makes getting something done with Trent McDuffie and George Karlaftis much easier. It puts them into a good situation where they can go into the offseason and figure out what they need to do with Chris Jones's contract to free up some money. They're at a spot where they are absolutely in needing at this point to do more than just a simple restructure. They need to do a revamp, from top to bottom, a little bit of the Patrick Mahomes contract. And they're not going to do that. I mean, they're going to be based, Mahomes going forward is going to continue to be based off that 10-year contract that he signed. They're just going to continue to fit it into that framework, put new money into the deal to get the salary cap figure down now, but still get him money that was going to make him competitive with top contracts around the league. I mean, you just get used to it. It's going to happen every 2 to 3 years. That's the way that the market goes, and that's the way that Mahomes' contract is set up. He's got a huge cap number next year, but the domino that has to fall first is that you got to figure out how long and how much is Trey Smith going to cost you. If he's 1 year and done, I mean, that's doable. I mean, you can work with that. If he's going to be here multiple years, you can work with that. You just need to know the numbers and how they fit in with the rest of the puzzle. So we've gotten zero indication about where the Chiefs and Trey Smith are. We'll see if anything develops. I mean, I've obviously been trying to get people to tell me where they are right now. I am certain that there are dozens of other reporters that were trying to get insight into where these contract negotiations sit. I do always say that, hey, no news is good news in the sense that it means that neither side feels hostile enough to go public. And that's usually when one side goes public is typically when things have gone sideways. So I think that's good for, at least the relationship between the Chiefs and Trey Smith, that things are positive. We got nothing but positive vibes from Trey Smith when he was here in town for off-season workouts and for the mandatory mini camp. So let's see what happens. But I mean, bottom line, Cody, is that it is quiet, and it's too quiet for me to feel like that you've got a deal that's imminent and that's something that's going to happen. So we'll hang tight. Got less than 7 more days. We'll see what happens. Man, Nikki, we need the ribs. That sounds great. I did have some ribs over the weekend. They were not fresh out of the smoker. They were from Fairway Market up by Liberty, so they were pretty tasty though. It was a pretty good deal. Jesus with the super chat. Thank you, Jesus. And with that, you move to the top of the line as always. When I remember and I see things, it reminds me. I think I still owe JCP a free one. So if I see his question, I need to pop him up. But Jesus asking, as an Indians Major League Baseball fan, do you see the Chiefs ever changing their name? Another great question. And I mean, I don't. I mean, the Chiefs are going to cling forever to the notion that their name is or had other originations, that it was not didn't come from Native American inspiration, that it had others. Obviously, that's a little misleading, because supposedly, I mean, the lore is that they got the name from H.R. Bartle. His nickname was the Chief. Call him the Chiefs. Yeah, but H.R. Bartle's nickname also came from the fact that he was the head of a Boy Scout tribe that had Native American inspiration. So even that's a little iffy. But I mean, honestly, I mean, you look at it, there has not been a large even, and I thought that the Chiefs having the success that they've had over the last 5 years would increase the pressure on this team to change the name. We haven't really seen it, and and honestly, I mean, the Chiefs have. Uh, I mean, I think you could question whether or not that how much they play into it. The tomahawk chop is obviously the one most controversial element of the Chiefs nickname that gets the most attention, and it still has a presence at Arrowhead Stadium. I mean, it still happens, and it's not necessarily totally organic. It gets prompted from time to time, but with what Cleveland went through with the changing of their name, it certainly seemed like the Chiefs are further down the list. I mean, the Commanders obviously have changed their name. There just hasn't been any pressure the last few years, and I thought that certainly, as the Chiefs had raised their profile, that it was a possibility. Unless something dramatically changes, Jesus, and then in the next 5-10 years, and at least in the short term, I don't think that there's any, certainly the Chiefs have no interest in changing their name. They're pretty happy with the nickname. They're happy with what they have, and the tie-ins with Arrowhead Stadium, even with the sponsored name on the stadium, they're sticking with that. So I don't see it happening. I'm sure that the question will be popped up from time to time, but it certainly at this point doesn't seem like that there's any momentum in that direction. I think even some of the criticism of the name, I mean, you still see periodically there's a billboard that I know popped up last season. It's been run a few years now. It's not been consistent, but it's a billboard, small billboard near the Truman Sports Complex that calls on the Chiefs to change their name. We've even gotten past the point where that billboard spurs any stories. I don't think I saw anything last year talking about the name change and anything of that nature when the billboard went up. So I just don't see it happening anytime soon. And, if it does, I think it would have to be something that's motivated by the franchise. And Clark Hunt, the Hunt family, is pretty happy with what they've got. They've got a brand. They feel like that it's a brand that works and a brand that a vast majority of fans don't have a problem with. So if that's the case, they're going to stick with it. So I'd be very surprised unless there is a public pushback that will drive them to it, like they did with Cleveland and with Washington. I just don't think that's going to happen. I mean, and you could possibly say if it was ever going to happen, it's going to happen when the team needs some money for a stadium, and it's not happening right now. So I don't see any reason to think that that's going to be doing things any differently. Chris, to see your question, I am going to star that because it's a question for Nick too, and I want to wait until Nick is here. So we'll wait. Oh, come on, let me star that. Why is it not letting me? Maybe I have to do that. There we go. I've got you, Chris. So I'll come back to that one later when Nick is here, so we can get his answer too. I don't know if he's going to have an answer, but we'll see. I have a couple of good answers to that question. Not a Chiefs question, but we'll get to it. Joey, in your humble opinion, as things stand, will Nico Remigio make the 53-player roster? Does he have the upper leg over the likes of Sky Moore, Tyquan Thornton, etc. after his run in the playoffs? And I'm working on that, Joey. I'm going to have my first 53-player projection up this week. And right now, I will have Nico Remigio on it. It's not doesn't really have anything to do with the wide receiver position. It's entirely about special teams. I think the Chiefs, barring any injuries, they are set with 5 players at the wide receiver position, unless there is anything dramatic that changes. And obviously, injuries or someone like Juju Smith-Schuster just simply, not looking like themselves and not being the player that you're accustomed to him being. I think you've got your 5 with Jalen Royals in there too, and the 3 starters. The question is then, with that group, who are your top return specialists, especially for kick returns and for punt returns? Need 2 kick returners, of course. One of them, if Brashard Smith is going to be active, which I think he's going to push his way into being active, he'll be one of your kick returners. You still doesn't leave you with anyone with extensive punt return experience. That's Nico Remigio. So Nico is the best position to be one of your 2 kick returners and be a punt returner. Doesn't mean that the Chiefs aren't going to experiment and try to see what they've got in some others. There are other players. Brashard's got kick return experience. Jalen Royals, Noel Williams. They've got some other players that have kick return experience that they can test at punt return. They didn't really do a lot of that during OTAs, so I expect that to ramp up. We'll see. We'll see from the get-go what happens at training camp and who's getting some looks on punt returns, because they will have more than a couple of guys. They'll put some others back there, and we'll see what they get. Sky Moore is one of those options, but I think Sky would have to do a lot to win and beat out Nico for the punt return job. And that would also leave the question, is Sky, reliable enough to be one of your kick returners? I think that Sky, to make the roster, would have to absolutely beat out Nico as the top return specialist amongst the receivers. Tyquan Thornton probably too. Both those guys. And if you're talking about that sixth receiver spot, I mean, I keep saying, you're going to have to include Jason Brownlee and probably Justin Ross too. Obviously the Chiefs historically have been higher on Justin Ross than myself, and I think I don't want to throw Nick in there with me, but I think both of us I would safely say the Chiefs have been higher on him than we have. I think those four players are going to be in a position for that final roster spot at wide receiver, but it's like I said, it's going to come down to who is the best return specialist, and Nico is that guy right now. So we'll see, especially who really shines out and stands out as receiver, and if somebody can kick in with some return skills, we'll see what happens. But right now, I think it's Nico's, and like I said, it's not. I don't have him as a 90%. I would put him at about 60 to 70% likelihood, whereas I would say that the rest of that group, including like Juju and Jalen Royals, they're all 90% plus to me to make this roster. Nico, it's a little bit more of a battle, but I think he's the favorite at this point. And then Joey also had the question, do you anticipate Jerry Tillery to be the one lined up alongside Chris Jones on the first snap in Brazil, or could Omar Norman Lott be the guy? I think it's going to be Omar Norman Lott. A lot to still go. And I know I saw somebody throw it out there, and I hope I didn't skip over it. I may have. Yeah, I think I did. So I got to go back before Jesus's question. I skipped over a few questions. Sorry about that, guys and gals. But until the pads come on, we don't know for sure. But based on what we saw during OTAs, I would say Omar Norman Lott is the most likely starter next to Chris inside. Now, hey, could it technically change because of a rotation or, what you want to open up in against the Chargers? Sure, it could. But I think Omar Norman Lott's going to be the number 2 defensive tackle behind Chris Jones. Tillery is going to be a rotational piece. They've got a few others that could be a rotational piece. But I think when, Brett Veach is talking about Omar Norman Lott being like Tershawn Wharton, Tershawn Wharton was number 2 clear choice as their number 2 defensive tackles. And that left other players as rotational pieces like Mike Pennell. So I think Jerry and Derek Nottie. And that's why I say, even though they're different players, I see Jerry Tillery and Derek Nottie playing very similar roles. They're, like I said, they're not the same guy. I think that, we'll probably see Mike Pennell maybe taking up a little bit more of the traditional Derek Nottie role. Maybe if there's another defensive tackle that makes this team, maybe that fits in there as well. Tillery, I think, is going to be, he's going to get his own work too, and maybe he takes a little bit of the Tershawn Wharton load that Omar, because remember, Tershawn played a lot of snaps. I'm still not 100% convinced that Omar Norman Lott is ready to take on that many snaps as a rookie. So I could see, that maybe Tillery's the rotational piece that helps keep Omar Norman Lott fresh. And I think that would definitely, if past is any indication, the Chiefs are going to want to build up Omar Norman Lott slowly. So, maybe he's not playing as many snaps in week 1 as he's going to be playing in week 14. But if that's the case, then, Tillery's going to be playing a little bit. But everything I've gotten indication so far is that the Chiefs feel like Omar Norman Lott's ready, and they are going to give him every opportunity to be starting next to Chris Jones in week 1. And I think it's going to happen. So once again, I'll try not to keep saying it because I lean on we'll see too much. It's my filler phrase for my transitions. I need to get better at that. Oh, Chris, we talked about that. And Cody, where did oh, it was the ribs. That's where I got sidetracked. Nikki, I got sidetracked thinking about the ribs. Cody, why do the Chiefs always wait until the last minute for things like this? It logically makes no sense. I mean, there's a little bit of just the best way to get deals done, and in the NFL, deadlines make deals is the phrase that everybody leans on. And like I said, and you were talking about earlier, I mean, some people certainly believe that the earlier you get into negotiations, or the first one to make an offer in negotiations, is the one that's going to lose. And the Chiefs, and I won't ascribe this to Brett Veach necessarily, because I don't think it's necessarily his philosophy. He's never said it's his philosophy, so I'm not going to quote him on that. But the Chiefs as an organization have typically kind of worked, and I think this even predates Brett Veach, but they've kind of worked a little bit from the philosophy of that the first one to blink in negotiations is going to lose. So I think the Chiefs always want the other side to make the first offer, to blink first, get the first numbers out there. So, whether that is the driving force behind this, but you've seen the pattern enough, Cody. I mean, I've seen it too. We all have. It's just there's too much of waiting until the last minute. I mean, really, the only deal that you can say is any different was Mahomes and his deal, which obviously got done much earlier than it had to. But then again, at the same point, you wanted to get that deal as done as early as you could, and I think they had just a different relationship, with Mahomes and his agents and the way that whole thing worked. So it's probably, as usual, Patrick Mahomes is the outlier for everything, but it happens. I mean, it is what it is. There's a lot of teams in the NFL who do the same thing. I remember when we were talking about Chris Jones a few years ago, we were talking about the other defensive tackles around the league. When we were talking about Tyreek's deal, we were talking about who's going to go first: Tyreek, Michael Thomas, some other receivers. You wait to see, Devontae Adams. We're talking about that too. One sets the tone for everything else, and there's not really so much of that this time around. This is just merely the July 15th deadline, and once again, deadlines make deals. So as much as, I heard and was told, back in March and April that spring was the goal for getting a Trey Smith deal done, still didn't mean that necessarily wasn't going to come down to this the entire time. And it wasn't going to come down to, I mean, at this point, it could be next Monday when it's like, okay, well, let's talk about things. Then again, I mean, we may have already reached that point. Maybe both sides have already talked and said, you know what, we're happy with the franchise tag. You're happy with the franchise tag. There's nothing left to talk about. And it's just nobody's bothered to tell a reporter yet. It can go a couple of different ways, but that's the only way I can describe it, Cody, is that it's a negotiating style that, whether it's Brett Veach's preferred method, it's Clark Hunt's preferred method, it's just a conventional way in the NFL to do things. I think it's just where you just got to get used to it. It's the way it's always going to work. Harold, my only Simmons question until the pads come on. Upco, #Upco. We need to get that going. Are we witnessing a medical miracle? How did all the other teams say, nah, we're good, and pass on him? It is a great question. And, and I was talking with Jason Anderson at 810 on this, I think a week or two ago. It's, I don't know we're necessarily seeing a medical miracle, because if you listen to what the Chiefs said, they'll tell you and that, hey, it turns out injury bad, maybe not as bad as it could have been. And then you get into the surgery. Surgery was best possible surgery. And maybe we're getting a little bit of hyperbole here and everything, but so far that's what we're being told, that the surgery went extremely well. It was the best possible outcome. Then you get into the kid and his rehab effort. And once again, he gets high marks for this, as far as doing the work and doing it the smart way and not pushing himself too fast, too early, doing all the right things. And you talk about the teams and all of them passing on him. Well, how many teams passed on him? There were probably a lot of clubs that were like, we're not in the market for a left tackle. So they're not going to be doing their due diligence. There's probably a handful of those teams that were there, especially if you took a left tackle last year. You're not taking a left tackle this year in the first round. So, there's a few that you could probably, mark off your list there. There are a few clubs that you hear the word patella tendon and they're out. And Brett Veach kind of alluded to that when talking about, Rick Burkholder and his response to that. He was almost a little bit of that when he heard, oh, patella tendon. I don't think so. But then was like, hey, let's take a look. Let's do the homework. Let's do the due diligence. And then you get the exam at the combine. And as has been reported, Albert Breer, I think, was the first one to put it out there, that there were some questions on the first medical exam at the combine that required a recheck. Not uncommon, but it happens when there's either players who have substantial injuries that you just want to see what the progress is. Sometimes it can be there's a question or a concern in the first exam, an unclear issue in the first exam. Once again, we don't know what that was in the situation driving Josh Simmons' recheck, but it was there. There were probably some teams that looked at the MRI, looked at, knew there was a recheck and is like, nah, we're good. We don't need to be taking this kind of risk. There were other teams that, probably once they got the recheck, they're like, well, it looks okay, but still, if we're going to spend a first round, pick on a left tackle, we don't want any questions. We don't want any medical red flags. So we're out. And remember, at this point, the Chiefs weren't even 100% sold on Josh Simmons. Once they got the medical rechecks and once they got him in for their visit, and once again, not every team brought Josh Simmons in for a visit, so they didn't see anything. When you did the visit, could have been an issue. There could have, and I'm sure there were some teams that saw his workout at Ohio State and were like, nah, this is maybe the second round, but it's not something that we're going to be spending a first round pick on. Each one of these steps, teams could have fallen out, and the Chiefs, to their credit, they didn't fall out, but also they didn't fall 100% in love and decide this was going to be their pick until really the second, Zoom they did with this kid. So, they did the meeting at the combine. They did the medical at the combine. They did the recheck. They had him in for a 30 visit with another medical exam. Then they did 2 more Zooms before they were like, okay, this is the guy that we're comfortable taking. They had to take every single one of those steps. And along each one of those steps, some NFL teams dropped out to the point where clearly the Chiefs were the only NFL team that were ready to take a first round pick chance. Had he not gone at 31 or 32 rather, well, 31 with the trade, 32 with the trade, excuse me. It's entirely possible. Maybe he goes at 33. You give every team a chance to sleep on it overnight. Maybe they're like, okay, now we can think about it in the second round. Maybe he goes just late 30s. Certainly, I don't think he falls all the way to the Chiefs. At some point, somebody in the second round would have gone ahead and taken the chance on him. If the Chiefs had passed on him, they certainly, I think, would have had to have moved up in the second round to go get him. It was probably more of just best case scenario for the Chiefs in a perfect storm as much as a medical miracle. And even with the medical miracle part, I mean, let's wait to see what happens. I mean, I'm rooting for the kid, but until the pads come on, like you said, and he gets out there and he survives contact and gets through all these steps and really, gets his feet under him, I think we're still a couple of steps short of talking about a medical miracle. And then even when you talk about it, I mean, hey, there are some players who have been coming back earlier and earlier from these injuries. So maybe it's just the medicine and the performance and the surgery catching up and finally making some big progress for players. Maybe it's the right player who's doing the right homework. Maybe it's the right team that did all of their homework. We'll see what happens. I mean, obviously it's been very impressive. No one expected Josh Simmons to be at this point right now. So I think you give the credit to the kid for doing the work. You give the credit for the Chiefs for doing their homework, and you see what happens. And if everything continues to go in the right direction. So, Kevin, will the punting position have a full-on battle this year? Ariza has no finesse to pin teams. He needs some serious competition. And that's, I mean, honestly, what the Chiefs felt too, Kevin. You're in the same line of thinking. The Chiefs felt like that Matt Araiza needed some competition to push him. That's why they brought in Eddie Chaplitsky. Really hoping I'm getting that right. That's why they brought him in. They gave, Dave Tobe thought this was the best guy was available from the rookie class, the Ray Guy winner. So obviously the credential is there. Bringing him in to push him. I think Matt Araiza does have some finesse. I have seen finesse from him during the offseason workouts. I've seen more finesse from him than I did a year ago at this time when it looked like it was just all big leg. And I know from talking to him last season, Matt Araiza is a thoughtful punter. He talks about punting in the same way that Harrison Butker talks about kicking. I think the finesse issue last year, I think it was twofold, maybe. And it could be more than that. There could be 3, 4, 5 reasons. I think the two biggest reasons for the lack of finesse from Araiza last year, maybe lack of touch from Araiza. One, I think, is the layoff. He had been out of competitive football and competitive punting for 2 years. That is bound to make you rusty. You're not going to get all that back in 1 year. And, and we saw he actually thrived in something that everybody questioned. I mean, the Chiefs weren't sure what kind of a holder he was going to be. And he spent a lot of the last 2 years working on holding. And that's something you can do. I mean, you need to be able to do it in crunch time. And that's when you need to get tested to make sure that you can perform and that you're reliable and that you're working with your kicker. But, Riza put in the work in the last 2 years and made himself into a really good holder. So, I think you got to give him some credit for that. But, like I said, I think the lack of competition, not being in games, not being in camps the last couple of seasons, I think that hurt him. I mean, that hurt his sharpness. So last year, first year back, and and I think there were times that he probably just had to rely a little bit on his, boom than anything else. And obviously the Chiefs wanted him to have more height than just distance. They wanted him to work on some things. And hey, let's face it, in football, coaches, evaluators of all sorts, everybody believes that competition brings out the best in players, and at least that's what you find. If it doesn't bring out the best in a player, then you're going to move on from the player because you're going to go with the guy that gets better. And I'll say this, the competition from what I saw during OTAs, Matt Araiza is better. So is he good enough to beat out Eddie Chaplitsky? We'll see. I mean, both those guys were really good during OTAs. There were times that I'll be honest, I couldn't tell you who was kicking. If I didn't look specifically at who was kicking the ball, could have been either one of them. I mean, they were both that good, and I felt like that consistent. I don't think that this competition is going to go all of camp. I think it's going to be, Chiefs are going to choose pretty quickly. So my gut tells me that probably first preseason game, you get both these guys a chance to kick and you see what happens. That's probably where the Chiefs make their decision. Remember, last year they did have competition in OTAs for Araiza, but they, at the end of the mini camp, they moved on. Ryan Reckow was the guy. Ryan Reckow obviously went out, had a great rookie season, and kicked really well last year. But then also remember, he'd also had competition for the last 2 years. He'd been kicking in college games. So, I think that was definitely an advantage for him. If Araiza wins this job, I think it's going to be because the Chiefs have faith in him as someone that can do what they want, that he's got the hang time that they want, that he's got the finesse that they want, especially inside the 50. That's where, I think he probably struggled the most last year, trying to pin teams inside the 20, inside the 10, inside the 5. They need more of that. And I'll be honest too. I mean, that's not on the punter. I think they need to have getting better a little bit at the gunner spots too. They got a couple of really good guys, and I think, and they had some really good reps and special teams and OTAs that I think you're going to see in, just more experience in this year on special teams that I think is absolutely going to help them. So we'll see what happens, but I think either one of these guys can kick. whoever loses can absolutely kick in the NFL. It's going to be a really good competition. And like I said, I think it'll probably go, unless one of these guys really, balls out in the first couple of weeks. I think first preseason game will probably be the deciding factor. And then the Chiefs will choose which one they like and go from there. Sarah, what's your gut feeling? Do you think that he will get signed before the deadline? You've been around there a while, so I'm wondering what your feeling is, and I'm sure you're talking about Trey. I'll be honest, right now, just because of the radio silence and where the team and the player are, I'm assuming it's more likely than not that Trey plays under the tag. It still would not surprise me if a longer term deal gets done, but there's part of me, once again, it's the same question we were kind of talking about earlier. What's holding it up? I mean, neither side apparently wanted to be in this situation. They thought that it would get done earlier. And if it's just a matter of the teams are too far apart, the Chiefs were prepared to play and to pay Trey under the franchise tag this year. The frustrating thing, I think, for the Chiefs, and this is the thing, is that one, I think and this is why I don't think that the franchise tag is a great possibility for both sides. One, for Trey Smith, it means less money. If a longer term deal should come with $40+ million guaranteed, I think it needs to be closer to 50. If the Chiefs aren't, willing to pay close to 50, then they really aren't interested in signing Trey Smith long term, which makes the franchise tag make more sense for them. And if you're just talking about the 2025 team, the Chiefs are better with Trey Smith for a 1-year deal. It makes them better for this year. It doesn't necessarily make them better for the next few years, but I can also see the logic behind, hey, you don't have a necessarily ready-made replacement for Trey Smith. Maybe you don't feel 100% comfortable that Hunter Norzad or Mike Caliendo is ready to do that, especially when you're not 100% convinced what you've gotten and Kingsley Suamataia. So maybe you're in the position it's like, okay, see what Kingsley's got, and then if Kingsley's good to go at left guard, then you've got another year of evaluation for Norzad and for Caliendo. You can decide if they're ready to replace Trey, somebody else. Wanye Morris, Jalen Moore would be your projected right tackle for right now. Maybe he's an option if you address right tackle in another way. You do have a lot more options for right guard that you feel better about in 26 than you do right now. So I get if this ends up being a 1-year deal for Trey Smith at $23.4 million, I get it, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's the best deal for both sides. I mean, Trey's best deal to me would be getting some guaranteed money more than that, because if you're a player, last thing you want to do is go out and play for the franchise tag, get hurt, and now that guaranteed money and that big money is not available there next offseason. I mean, that can cost you tens of millions of dollars. So if the Chiefs are willing to get close to his price range and to get up to $45-50 million guaranteed, that's what I think you want as a player. If you're the Chiefs, the $23.4 million, that's a big number for this year. I mean, obviously, if you love Trey Smith, you'd love, I think, for him to be a part of this team going forward. But if you pay him on the franchise tag, I just don't see a really good solution to how you get value for Trey Smith next offseason if you don't sign him long term. And let's face it, I mean, one of two things will happen. Either Trey Smith goes out and gets hurt, underperforms, and now all of a sudden isn't worth, giving a long-term deal next year of the one that you're talking about right now. Maybe that's good for the Chiefs, but then again, I mean, Chiefs don't necessarily want damaged goods, so I don't know if that's and now they're not going to be able to get the compensation that they want for Trey Smith. So that's not really a win-win scenario of any way. I mean, Trey Smith getting hurt is a lose-lose for everybody. The other possibilities, plays really well. Okay, you're going to franchise tag him. Your franchise tag for Trey Smith is going to be $28 million plus next year. You're already $37 million over the cap, like Nick and I were talking about on the 41 is the mic this week, and can't tell you enough. Go listen to that if you want to kind of get an idea about how 2026 looks and how all these pieces fit together. But that's why I feel like, hey, a long-term deal is in the best interest of both sides. But I just don't know if both sides are there. I mean, if the Chiefs aren't willing to give Trey the money that he wants and probably deserves, then bet on yourself, see what happens. I mean, that's a legitimate point to take. If you're the Chiefs, I feel like you probably should be motivated to get a long-term deal done, because I don't see how this ends well with Trey Smith on a second franchise tag, that then you're trying to figure out how to get a long-term deal done or to trade. And I just feel like that's a lose-lose too. So I just don't see a good outcome or solution if the Chiefs do go into this. I mean, I think the only thing you're really talking about is that the best case scenario is, hey, Trey Smith is healthy and you decide you want to make a long-term investment and you do it next offseason. It's going to cost you more next offseason than it would right now. The other alternative is that you go into this just knowing that Trey Smith is going to walk. You're going to let him go to free agency, and the best you're going to get is a third-round comp pick. I mean, and that to me, like I said, that is the all-in on 25 possibility. That's you saying that Trey Smith for 1 year for 2025 gives you the best chance to go out and win another Super Bowl, and that you feel like that you can replace him better in 26 than you can right now. I mean, there's a lot of ways and different ways to look at this, and a lot of ways to kind of try and put the puzzle together, Sarah. But my feeling, I at this point right now, I think that playing under the franchise tag is the most likely scenario. I don't, like I said, I was telling Ryan Tracy earlier on Locked On Chiefs, I don't think it's better than 50-50. I think that's probably more like, 40-45% for both these scenarios, that, as far as franchise tag versus a long-term deal, I'm going to get more positive that it's going to be the franchise tag every day that we go forward. But at the same time, it's not going to blow me away if at the last minute somebody blinks and these two sides get something done, because we've seen it before. Scott, with all the injuries to Chiefs wide receivers last year early in the schedule, do you think Reed and coaches will protect them more than usual in training camp? I really don't think so, Scott. I mean, the only thing I guess there's two ways you could say that you really can protect receivers in camp. One of them is obviously, hey, if there's anything that pops up with a soft tissue, that you're shutting them down. And the Chiefs are pretty aggressive about that anyway. I mean, they will probably be even more aggressive, but they generally are. I mean, if you're grading on a Madden rating about what their, injury management and soft tissue injury management is during training camp, like it's like a 98. So you could probably only dial it up to about a 99 to make it even more. The other thing would be that you just manage their reps and maybe to back them off a little bit. And I don't necessarily see that. I think, the Chiefs are kind of doing that on their own and have done that on their own a little bit. I think that Andy Reid's very sensitive about the fact that I think his actions during OTAs and even the way that he's going into the beginning of training camp with, doing away with the rookie camp, I think it's cognizant of the fact that I think this team hitting a wall in the Super Bowl was certainly a significant factor in that loss. I don't think it was the only factor. I think there was plenty of others too. But this team just running out of steam and running out of juice in the biggest game, I mean, I don't think there was any doubt. I mean, the Eagles showed up for that game with a lot more energy, a lot more pep and tempo and everything than the Chiefs had. And I get, hey, you had 2 weeks off, all of that. But it's not the same. I mean, the Chiefs have been running at this level for 5 years, 6 years, 7 years. I mean, they've played almost a full season. Well, they played a full season more than a lot of teams have played. So I think Andy Reid's been cognizant of trying to just back off and getting a little bit less work and a little bit less reps for everybody. Remember, with the receivers, almost none of the receivers really took part and, was 100% go in all 12 of these OTA practices in the offseason. I mean, there was a lot. I mean, Rashee Rice missed practices. Hollywood Brown sat out some practices. I think you'd say that, Jalen Royals probably played the most of anybody, and Xavier Worthy. But I'm not even sure that they did the full. Jalen Royals might have. I think you could probably say that he did a absolutely full workload and maybe plus. picking up reps, just getting, learning the system and everything. Worthy probably got a little bit of time off. I can't say for certain that Worthy was there for all 12 of those practices. The other receivers weren't, so they got some time off. But you want and need that time in training camp because you need to get the timing down. I mean, that was obviously something that they were missing last year. They were missing some timing at times, especially with guys like, Worthy. You've got a better situation, better chemistry now with your quarterback, but you want Mahomes and the 5 or 6 guys that you're going to be working with the most, getting as many reps with him as possible. So I don't see that, Scott, but I see where you're coming from. But I think Andy Reid's trying to give his players rest and protection in some other ways. But I think he's still going to run an Andy Reid training camp the way he runs them. And like I said, I mean, he may find some other ways to get his players rest, but I don't think it'll be as far as just how much work he gives them in training camp. Chris, for both you and Nick, what was the most? This is the one I started to come up with later for Chris. So I guess I'm getting back to where I was stuck earlier. So, all right, now let's get back. And this is where I'm worst, is talking by myself and reading, because I know everybody's got great questions on further down, and you're making comments that I'm behind on, and I'm not being very funny yet because I'm just by myself. So until Nick gets here, I probably haven't said anything yet. Hopefully haven't said anything yet that's causing, a great deal of ruckus. Or has Brian showed up yet and caused any trouble? Oh, there's Brian. There he is. But it doesn't look like he's not causing any trouble. Saying hit the like button, which I have not done yet. So that's why Brian's here. So we keep Brian around for a reason, folks. All right. I think Oh no, there we go. That's where we're at. Why are the Chiefs insisting on clinging to Sky and Justin Ross? It's like hanging on to Cornell Powell for nothing. Didn't you ask this last week? It may not have been you. It may have been somebody else, but I know we get the Sky and Justin Ross question. Hey, there's one. I think that the thing with both of those guys, and Cornell too. Cornell might have been a little bit different case. There's probably some other receivers that have been in another case, and the best thing I can do to describe it is that, it's a little bit like you hear in baseball about 4A players, guys that, crush AAA, but maybe they're just not good enough to consistently play in the majors. Cornell Powell kind of proved that. He went over to the UFL and kind of crushed it this year a little bit. I think he led his team, if not the league, in touchdown catches. I mean, he had a really good season. I mean, if Sky Moore went and Justin Ross went to the UFL, they'd probably crush it too. There's a ton of talent there. There's a ton of athleticism. The Chiefs, they don't want to be the team that gives up on the guy too early. And, especially for guys that they're comfortable with and like and that fit in. If Sky Moore and Justin Ross were pains in the neck and were causing problems in the locker room based on their performance, they wouldn't be here anymore. So, obviously part of it is that they're good teammates. They fit in well, chemistry wise, they're not a problem. They've been productive on the practice field. They've done everything that, their coaches have asked for. They just haven't translated it on the field. And I'll admit, I mean, Sky's always going to be a mystery to me. I mean, a little bit. I mean, maybe the understanding is there a little bit about why Sky hasn't been able to translate, practice field success to the field. Justin's, I think, is a little bit different. I mean, he's obviously an incredible physical talent. He can do some things that other people just can't do. I'm just still not sure that his fit in this offense is great. Maybe Justin Ross maybe Sky Moore could go to another team and fit in much better. You never know. Maybe they're just they're square pegs in a round hole here. But they both have athleticism. They both have talent. So, like I said, the Chiefs are holding on to them because they feel like that there's still potential there and they don't want to give up on them too early. Cornell probably a little bit, like I said, was a little bit different. And Cornell too was, remember, he spent a lot of time on the practice squad, and he's one of those guys that I would say was a practice squad all-star. He was a guy that, once again, I mean, Cornell was fast. I mean, he could do a lot of things. He was a smart player too. I mean, I think that's one thing that's probably undersold for him a little bit. I think that his football IQ probably offset a lot, maybe some deficiencies as far as just maybe athleticism wise. But he was the kind of guy that they felt so I mean, he was like like I said, a practice squad all pro. He could run anything. He could mimic any receiver that they needed, on scout teams. So there were some things that Cornell Powell did that just you would never see because they only show up on a practice. And on as a practice squad guy, that's all you need. And maybe Sky, maybe Justin Ross, maybe they'll find roles on the practice squad and niches, but that's why they stick around. I mean, Chiefs still see talent, so they're not going to give up on him. And Nick is going to be joining us shortly, and he is going to be ecstatic that I already got over the Cornell Powell Justin Ross question, so he won't have to be here for that. So no offense, Pano. Joey, second ONL question: what is the holdup on the contract situation? Could it lead to him sitting out of training camp? And this is Omar Norman Lott. The holdup is that. For all of the consternation that we hear and a certain national blogger had about the NFL and collusion, I think you could convincingly make an argument that agents and maybe the NFLPA, I don't know. I'm not gonna say that, but you could certainly make a convincing argument that agents right now are colluding because they want second round contracts to be fully guaranteed. So that's why there's only 2 guys I believe still signed out of the second round because agents are trying to get every second round contract guaranteed. And I mean, obviously the goal is that if you get all the second round contracts guaranteed, next step, get all the third round contracts guaranteed. I mean, this is what they're trying to do. So this is why nobody in the second round, except for those 2 players, have anything done yet. Could it lead to him sitting out of training camp? I mean, there's a possibility, but we've still got a couple of weeks. He was out there for OTA, so didn't miss anything because of the contract holdouts. At this point, it hasn't done anything. There's going to be some blinking in the next couple of weeks, whether it's a team that blinks, a player and an agent that blinks. Somebody will cave a little bit, and somebody will cave. If a team caves and gives somebody a guaranteed contract, then it's probably going to be a run on a bunch of guys getting guaranteed contracts in the second round. If a player and an agent blinks and somebody gets, half of their money guaranteed, then that's going to be the next. I mean, everybody's going to start falling in line. It just needs one contract to get done, and then everybody's going to probably get done in a matter of days. So I'm still not super worried about it. We do have obviously the Chargers showing up on the 12th. So there will be other teams that deal with the start of training camp along this before the Chiefs do. There's other teams that will be starting like on the 15th and the 18th. So even though the Chiefs have a earlier start than some other teams, there are a handful of others that are going to go first. And I think you're hoping that those teams get something done with their second round picks, and then everybody else falls in line. So there's an advantage here for the Chiefs to have their start date back a little bit, and not having players report until the 21st, because now those other teams can, if you're the Chiefs, hopefully go first, get their second round picks done, and then you just follow in line. Alex, wouldn't you love that brand new dome though? That could be a really cool concept. With a Kingdom Dome. There you go. Kingdom Dome. Good name for it there. I was going Kingdom, and I'm like, oh, that was Seattle, but Kingdom Dome. Yeah, there you go. Oh no, I would absolutely love a new stadium in Kansas City. It would be fantastic. And especially a dome stadium. I mean, climate controlled in the winter. There's a lot to like about that. I get football's supposed to be played outdoors. Well, but I don't know if football's supposed to be played -4 degrees either. So I'm also not necessarily a huge fan of playing preseason games when it's 94 degrees outside. So there's a few other times, but I also would love for Kansas City to get a Final Four and maybe get the dream of having a Super Bowl. There's so many things and concerts and other things that Kansas City could capitalize on, that you've got a venue that could host events like this year round, and you don't have to worry about weather or postponements or rainouts or anything of this nature. It would be just fantastic for Kansas City to have a dome. But at the same time, I mean, I get the nostalgia for Arrowhead, and and I saw Nick's employer KSHB, Charlie Keegan, had a story up today talking about that's the priorities of the Royals and the Chiefs for Kansas. But he went out to, I think Johnny's out there across from where the Royals possibly could go at the Asperia campus, the old Sprint campus. And there's fans who are like, they're okay with the Royals going to Kansas, but they don't want the Chiefs to leave Arrowhead. So and we haven't seen yet what the renovation plans would be for a renovated Arrowhead. They're going to be different than what we saw the first time around back in March of 2024 on that vote in April of 24 that went down. It's going to be a different concept. I'm hoping it's going to be a better concept. Maybe there's still an activation area, but maybe it's not the leading, detail of the renovation. They can pitch it a little bit differently. I have faith that a renovated Arrowhead could absolutely serve for the next 30 years and be a bridge to the future. And hey, I'm a lifelong Missourian, so I've got some loyalty in this whole thing too, that I'd like to see the Chiefs stay in Missouri. But bottom line, I think if you're a Chiefs fan, you're someone that's a Kansas City fan, just a city fan and a resident of the city. You want the best thing for the city and the franchise. It could be that, that those are two different things. Maybe the best thing for the franchise is staying at Arrowhead. Maybe the best thing for Kansas City would be a dome. I'm somewhat convinced that there won't be a roof at Arrowhead no matter what. That's unless there has been a technical breakthrough. The Chiefs in the past have been pretty skeptical that they could ever put a roof on Arrowhead. Maybe that has changed. Maybe there's a development. I mean, even though I know once upon a time they proposed, putting a rolling roof over Kaufman and Arrowhead. Actually proposed it twice. Talked about it back in 1969, 1970. Talked about it again in 2006, 2007. Even in 2006, 2007, they didn't know how to put a rolling roof on that thing. It was just like, I'm not even sure they ever wanted that thing to pass, but I don't know. I mean, I'm hoping that this is a win-win either way, Alex, that if, with the Chiefs stay at Arrowhead, that it's going to be a home run renovation. If they get a dome, it should be great for Kansas City. So, Chris, should reporters be required to stay in the dorms during training camp? I mean, I don't want to necessarily go with required, but if you are going to let me stay in the dorms with the players, I would do that in a heartbeat. If you're going to make me stay in a dorm across the quad in Missouri Western, I might pass on that. I mean, unless I also get dining room privileges. I mean, basically, if I'm gonna be staying in the dorm, I need increased access to the players. That's what I need. So if I can, I'm trying to build some relationships here, Chris. I'm trying to develop some sources. So if there's an upside there, yes. If I'm just being kidnapped and trapped in a college dorm for a month, that's a hard pass, bro. So, hey, it would save wear and tear on the old vehicle. That is a 100-mile round trip for me from my home to training camp. So with what I believe this year, I think it's 19 trips to St. Joe. I can't remember off the top of my head. I mean, that's almost 2,000 miles. I know last year was worse than that. So, hey, given the chance, with the right incentives, Chris, I'm okay with that. But otherwise, no, you can take the dorm life. I'm like Dave Tobe. I think I'm over that. Perry, do you and Nick believe that Trey is worth 23 plus million a year in both player and positional value, considering the upcoming free agency on this team? That's a great question, Perry. And it's the positional value that I think makes it a little bit more difficult. If you were just talking about the player, I wouldn't have any problems with Trey Smith and making him the highest paid guard. I know, like I alluded to earlier, I was talking to Ryan Tracy earlier for the Locked On Chiefs podcast, and Ryan's argument is that, hey, that Trey's not the best guard in the league. So does paying him like the best guard in the league make a lot of sense? It does make sense to me in the sense that Trey Smith does things for you beyond what you see on the field. I mean, he is a leader. He is a great ambassador for this team. I mean, I think that if Trey Smith played his entire career with the Chiefs, he's going to be a fan favorite for decades to come. I mean, I'm certain that Trey, when he retires, is moving back to Tennessee because that is home. But I wouldn't be surprised if he'd keep a home in Kansas City and pop in here from time to time. I think you'd see a lot of Trey Smith. I know his Volunteers are the first in his heart, but the Chiefs are a close second. So I don't think he'd be going anywhere. I think he'd be continue to be an ambassador for this team. And I'm not saying you pay a guy $23 million because 30 years from now he's going to be a fan favorite. But he has, to me, institutional value. He's got leadership value. He's got other things that he does for you that doesn't translate on the field. And there's always the fact that you consider it in that reasonable chance that the next guy at that position is not going to be as good as Trey Smith. You might end up with a revolving door at that position. You might end up with a revolving door left guard too. I mean, that's the chance that you take when you walk away from players who are big names. So we'll see what happens, but and Nick, like I said, will be in here in a minute. I'll revisit this with him and see what he thinks about it, especially from the positional value, because that's where I think that you get the one thing that's maybe a little bit debatable about the positional value. So, like I said, I'll bring that up with Nick when he comes in and see what he thinks. Joey, as you mentioned, special teams, any chance we see Xavier Worthy back there at any point, as Tobe has been vocal about him being the best hidden returner in the league? I think Dave Tobe wants to see Xavier Worthy back there. I am just not certain that we are ever going to see Xavier Worthy back there. As long as he's a starter, I just don't see that makes any sense. I have no doubt Xavier Worthy as a punt returner would be electric. I've got a little concern that just, based on his one weakness that was, I think, noticeable as a rookie, is that he can go down after first contact. And I think in a punt returner, you'd like a guy that, can maybe sometimes run through a tackle or evade get some extra yards after contact. That's not his strength. We'll see if that builds. Maybe he's going to turn that into a strength. But that would be my only two concerns about Xavier Worthy from that standpoint would be, yes, his ability to get yards after contact. And then the other part of it is, the injury factor, and just how much you're able to rely on him as a kick returner, punt returner, when you're going to want him to be on the field on offense. And last year, hey, that there was a little bit of revisionist history in the explanation there. I mean, it was the Hollywood Brown injury that really, caused them to, back off of any thoughts about Xavier Worthy being the punt returner. I don't think that Xavier Worthy was going to be a punt returner last year anyway. They seemed to be wanting to make sure that they weren't exposing him to any additional hits. I mean, I could see it if he becomes a Tyreek home run, just in case you need to put your biggest, fastest, well, not your biggest, but your fastest guy back there. Maybe that's you're down 7 late in the game. Maybe that you do that. But I don't think there's much of a chance of seeing Xavier Worthy. Tobe might be pushing for it, but I think Andy Reid's going to be like, nah, dog. I don't know. We need to be doing that. I'm like talking like I don't know, a bro tonight of some sort, and I've been saying something rubbed off on me, Nick. I don't know what's going on. Alex, if Simmons starts, is Taylor on a very thin leash as far as penalties with having more? Good question. I don't know if I would necessarily say that he's on a thin leash. I mean, I think having Jalen Moore there is helpful. But I don't think the Chiefs would necessarily have a quick hook. That if Juwan struggles early with any injuries, or if he struggles with penalties, that it's just making the move. I mean, obviously they're paying him a lot of money, so I think that they would still like to try and get as much value out of him as they can. And you don't want to make a move too early, and when that injuries could happen. I mean, if Juwan is struggling, you pull him out, put in Jalen Moore. All of a sudden you have an injury, whether it's Simmons or elsewhere along the line, or Jalen Moore, and all of a sudden you got to go back to Jawan Taylor. You don't necessarily want him fractured. So I I still get the sense that the Chiefs, hey, they like Jalen Moore. I mean, obviously, I think this is the last year for, or I say Jalen Moore. They like Jawan Taylor. I think that this is certainly the last season for Jawan. I mean, they are going to be moving on in a different direction after that, but I don't think it'll be a super tight leash. I mean, maybe it'll be tighter than it was last year. Obviously, you know, his first year in town, they pulled him out of the one game in Jacksonville, but put him right back in there. So, but I don't think it'll be a quick hook. Speaking of quick hooks, I hope we don't have a quick hook for Nick tonight.
Hello, Matt. I can't see your camera, but I know you're there.
I will preface this, you know, for both Nick and for everyone else. Yes, I know that StreamYard, our platform of choice for this, has been having some problems with virtual backgrounds this week. I was doing a podcast last night where the guy with the virtual background was popping out every 30 seconds and had to turn it off. So that might be what's happening, Nick. So just fair warning.
Nope, and you're back.
Oh, well, there you go. Did you hear me, or you just couldn't see me?
Both.
Well, I was saying StreamYard's having trouble with virtual backgrounds. So
they're having trouble on a lot of things. They even got rid of the virtual background a handful of times, and it didn't matter.
Yeah, they've been having some technical difficulties this week. So if you disappear, or I disappear from you, that's probably why. So we're going to cross our fingers. Nick, what's on your mind tonight? What's going on?
Absolutely nothing, Matt.
I don't want to put any pressure, and certainly, you know, because we are having technical difficulties with the platform. But any Hy-Vee finds this week?
Technically, I found them last week. So.
Well, you know, I knew you had some in inventory just in case you didn't find any.
Case. Yeah, you never know.
No pressure. So
all right,
we can come back to it.
There's another one.
There you go. You want to start with the Hy-Vee finds, or?
All right, yeah, we might as well. On a new Tuesday edition, July 8th of Hy-Vee finds. Here's what we have. First, it's cherry mash. For people that don't know, cherry mash is a candy that has, you know, it's kind of a syrupy cherry flavor thing and stuffed inside of chocolate. It was originally made up in St. Joe, and I think it might still be made up there. So, that is a local cherry mash, if I remember correctly.
I was going to say, I know cherry mash was popular when I was a kid, but primarily with like people 50 plus.
Yes, that is who introduced me to it. People above that age when I was a little kid.
So there you go. But
it's
once
passed
again,
down from generation to generation.
And I'll tell you what. I mean, I'm now unfortunately in that demo, but I don't know if I would be, you know, enjoying any cherry mash myself.
Well, I mean, I think you would. You just can't have a bunch of them. You know. Just saying. And our second Hy-Vee find, it is Oreo Thins. Not only can you get them in regular form, you can also get them in now tiramisu and also the Irish cream.
Tell you what,
I looked for their blueberry one while I was there about an hour ago. They have a blueberry pie one I was intrigued to try. Luckily, it wasn't there, so I am able to continue on my fitness journey, Matt.
Excellent. Yes, Oreos and their various flavors are absolutely a challenge for the diet. And Oreo is finding ways to put more and more flavors into these things than. I mean, have you seen the Selena Gomez cinnamon Oreos?
Yeah, we've talked about it, and I took photos of it, but it's not for this week.
There you go. So
they even have an Oreo that's loaded now that has crushed up Oreos inside the cream filling.
Oh my! I mean, I and don't get me wrong. I mean, the peanut butter cream Oreos are fantastic. So I got no problems with, and the ones right below that, because it looks like the vanilla cream Oreos with the I don't know what you call it. It's like a graham cracker. It's not really a graham cracker.
No, it's just vanilla Oreos.
Just what vanilla.
So my grandpa used to always have in his cookie jar. So anytime I see that, I think of him.
Those are tasty too. So got no problems with that. So
that is a new edition of Hy-Vee finds. Come back next Tuesday for more things we find in every aisle.
And where there was also a helpful smile. Were there any helpful smiles by those Oreos?
They were all pretty busy tonight. They were either doing checkouts or they were getting ready to restock once 9 o'clock hit. So,
all right, I got two questions for you right off the bat that are kind of in inventory here.
are they about Hy-Vee?
Not about Hy-Vee, but one I was talking about just as you were kind of coming in.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're going to pay Trey Smith $23 million ish for multiple seasons, is that good? Is that good value for you? Yes.
Yeah, of course it is.
Even with positional value and no concerns there, you are
Look,
on board.
Here's the nonsense that I'm gonna like. Okay, everybody wants to talk about positional value. Well, you don't normally pay at that position. That position's not important. It's not as important. Look, at the end of the day, you have two offensive linemen in Creed Humphrey and Trey Smith that know what they're doing technique-wise and are in the prime of their career, and you don't have to worry anything about them. You build around that. Trey Smith is a leader on this football team, and he is one of the few sure things you have on that offensive line for the most important investment you have on this football team that wears the number 15 and walks around like he's got an S on his chest because he does. And so the thing people need to understand is that Creed and Trey are your known commodities. Jawan Taylor, you know what he is as a commodity. You're just unfortunately overpaying for what he has given you on the football field right now. And after this season, you can do what you need to do from a financial perspective. But the thing is, you don't know what you have in Josh Simmons. You're not 100% sure what you have in Jalen Moore. You know what he put on tape with the 49ers, but you don't know what you have with him right here, right now. And you don't know what you have in Kingsley Suamataia. You don't know what you have in Hunter Norzad definitively yet. You don't know what you know what you have in Mike Caliendo, but you are still probably going to give it one more year until you know exactly where he is at. So those two, Creed and Trey, are what you know. And in the NFL right now, with the way defensive tackles, they are the ones who can disrupt in 2.5 seconds, not the ends. That's what's changed in the NFL that people don't talk about enough, is that the defensive tackles are who disrupt the quarterback now. The defensive ends can sure get there, but if they're getting there, it's because you've got a 5 or 7 step drop and you've given the ends enough time to get there, or they can rush from a wide 9 and get past a poor offensive tackle performance, which some people could do whenever they went against Kingsley Suamataia or Wanya Morris. But what I'm getting at here at the end of the day is you are paying for what you know with Trey. You are paying for what he brings to a locker room. And you could say, hey, stats-wise, PFF says this, and this website says that. I don't care. What the tape shows is what is actually reality. People use the known quantified numbers simply because it allows them to put people in a box, and it allows them to be able to correlate what they may not be able to decipher on tape because they don't watch tape, because they got stuff going on in their lives, or they may just love the game of football and they don't really want to know the ins and outs of it at that aspect, which is completely fine, because that's how I am with basketball and baseball. So like, it's not a knock on anybody, but yes, you pay Trey, as they say in Rounders, you pay this man his money.
I knew you were going to say that.
So, I mean, like, look, is it going to be cheap? No, it's not going to be. But that's what happens when you have good players and when you do a good job in the draft.
There you go. Well said. No notes. The second question we had was from Chris, not about football, but for both of us, Nick. What was the most dangerous weather event you were in? And I'm assuming Chris kind of motivated by the weather in Texas, which is just absolutely heartbreaking. I mean, the devastation is just, I can't even imagine what's going on for those people down there. Luckily, I've never been in anything that serious, Nick. I mean, I've been in a house that took a glancing blow from a tornado. Just all of what we fortunately lost were shingles off of our roof. But, you know, there were houses half a mile, actually quarter mile away from us that were just completely and totally decimated to the foundation. So
Yeah.
I assume that's for most of us in the Midwest. How close we've been to a tornado is about the most severe weather I've ever been in.
I mean, if I had driven a great distance in the ice storm we had, the freezing rain we had earlier on the day before the Chiefs were going to play the Broncos, probably that would have been less than ideal. And then the snow event the very next day that just continued and continued and continued, maybe that would have. I mean, my truck probably could have got through it, but I don't have to worry about finding out. But I would say probably in terms of driving through was coming back from Indianapolis after that Chiefs Colts playoff game. Technically, it was the 2013 season, but it was early 2014 in January. Kenitra and I got to Hazelwood that night, but I mean, we still had to drive through the St. Louis portion before it was getting ready to hit Indy, and while it was already going through most of Indiana. So, I mean, we still drove through 9 inches of snow that was still snowing at that time from St. Louis. And then once we got to Columbia, it was easy sailing from Columbia to Kansas City. But I know all the other TV stations, they had to get through it. Poor Johnny Kane, whenever he worked at a competitor here in town, like Johnny got stuck there at the hotel till Wednesday and lost power. And they had to do live shots from the hotel and from Indianapolis. And so, like, all that combined, like, I didn't envy that for Johnny, and Johnny's doing great. He's up in Detroit now as he does stuff for the Detroit Tigers and Detroit Pistons. So, yeah, I mean, those are the ones that come to mind in terms of physically driving through. I mean, yeah, tornadoes have come by from time to time and everything, and there was a tornado whenever I was on the campus at Warrensburg, and you could feel the wind pretty quickly inside the dorm room that year back in 06. No, it was May of 07. It was May of 06. Or it might have been May of 07. May of 07. We'll go May of 07. But anyways, so I'd say those are the 3 biggest.
Yeah, many of the Kansas City media has some heartwarming stories about stories of friendship that were developed on that trip back from Indianapolis following that playoff loss. Because I think the folks from the Star, Vahe, Gregorian, Blair Kirchhoff, I think Adam Teicher may have been in that group too. I mean, I think they almost had to move into a Waffle House in Indianapolis because they had nowhere to go. I will say this: my worst drive that I have ever had was the drive back from Nashville following, I guess that would have been that was 2019. That was the Chiefs loss to the Titans. We made that kind of a family road trip weekend, and the drive back. There were many of us because once again that was a drive for most of us, especially like TV folks. Were driving their trucks and everything down since it was easier than flying. But the ice storm and snow that hit St. Louis on the way back was nasty. That might be the worst ice that I have ever driven in. And I think I probably avoided about just a half dozen accidents by just absolute sheer luck. And if I'm a cat that has 9 lives, I know I lost one of them when there was a semi-trailer that just about took us out. And I remember Danny Welniak had the same thing. She had a semi-trailer that just about took her out. And I think that was at the point that she's like, okay, we're done. We're getting off here and we're not driving anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So, all right, now we know we are at our favorite point of the show, Nick, which is that I have to go and find which place I was at before I got lost.
Oh boy.
We're close. Oh, and found it. Joey, how do you forecast the future of Wanye Morris? Potential right
tackle. How are you at questions that are 729?
A lot of questions early, Nick. A lot of questions early.
Okay.
I've answered a lot of questions. I've been making decent time.
Don't make me go up there and count because I will.
You know what? Will. But you know what? Now it is. Don't make me do it because you know I will do it. mean, you all know what's happening. If you're a long time, you know it's coming. There you go. All right. So now I have to go back and find my question that I lost. Wanye, Joey.
For the record, you were at 18 questions.
It's a lot of questions. I mean, that's like, okay. I mean, and you know, before you got here, that's like maybe 3 minutes a question. Maybe not great. Maybe 4 minutes a question. There was an opening monologue too. So, all right, but lightning round, Joey.
Don't say lightning round. There doesn't exist anymore. It's just a lie.
Well, I'm going to act like it's a lightning round.
Okay.
How do you forecast the future of Wanye Morris? Potential right tackle next season, off the team. So many possibilities, I feel. What is your feelings about Wanye Morris?
You're hoping he performs well in preseason and makes it difficult for you, or that maybe a team potentially would want to trade for him. The thing is, right now, you've got Josh Simmons, you've got Jalen Moore, you've got Jawan Taylor. So at this point, you're deciding between one or two tackles. And so is Sapol going to be an individual that you can sneak on the practice squad, or is he going to perform so strong you got to put him on the 53? Is Ethan Driscoll a guy who has a ton of promise that you made sure you didn't lose last year? Is he an individual that you have to keep on the 53? And are you okay with the possibility that you potentially waive him and a team picks him up after that 53? That's what they'll have to decide on that front. Then you got Wanye, obviously, and you'll potentially see what's going to happen there. But I mean, for the most part, you really got, and then you've got Chu Godric as well. So I mean, across the board there, you've got plenty of people that can fill in for that fourth tackle spot. It's just a matter of letting them compete at training camp.
Yeah, it is difficult. I mean, to me, the high-end expectation for Wanye at this point would be if he could develop into a utility lineman that could play 4 spots. That's probably still too high for him. I mean, he's had a couple of opportunities to claim a tackle position and hasn't really done it yet. I don't think that the Chiefs are, at this point prepping him to be the right tackle for 2026. Could he be in the guard mix? That's what I'm interested in seeing in camp. If we see a lot more of Wanye at guard, because certainly with Jalen Moore around now, I mean, Wanye's future may be at guard. So, Sharon, biggest challenge for Mahomes. Me transition from Kelsey to Rice as go-to. Mahomes relies a lot on muscle memory when under duress. What to you is the biggest challenge for Patrick Mahomes this season, Nick?
Just how long it takes for him to get comfortable with whatever's going to happen at left tackle. Like that's the biggest thing, because this whole offense is based on receivers being able to read the same way Mahomes does, and for him to not have enough time for any of the 5 and 7 step drops part of the offense. And so this isn't something that's just on Patrick. This is going to be on everybody that's a part of that offense, from coaching staff to players. Is how do they become less predictable when, with parts of the offense? Because the Eagles showcased that they knew what they were doing. They knew their number. They knew how to sit on every route with the zone coverage that they did, and to have to force Mahomes in scramble mode and try to get him to find somebody. And so, I mean, other teams are going to replicate that and duplicate that. That's just the reality of what's going to happen. So for somebody like Patrick, I don't think he's focusing on Travis under duress as much as you think he is, Sharon. I think it's just there's a lot more at work there than there's only so much Patrick can control. Let me put it that way. And so Patrick's trying to play within what the offense is that's designed. And there's times where whenever that doesn't go according to plan, or there's not a route they can win on that play, or the defense called a good coverage against them, then there's either not enough time for that deep pass to get open, which is going to be on the left tackle situation last year, and we'll see what happens at left guard this year. And then the other aspect can be just Sometimes you got to run the ball. So
yeah, and that's probably you kind of hit on a little bit. I might broaden it as just a general. I mean, I think there were certainly times in the last couple of years that Patrick felt like that everything was on him. And not just in clutch time, but like every single moment of every single game, that it was up to him to make the play at every single moment or they were going to lose. And that's difficult to play for an entire season. You can't play with that kind of adrenaline and that kind of focus. Trust is, I think, a big thing for him. And it's not just about the left tackle spot. It's probably about the right tackle spot, about the left guard, but it's about the receivers and the running backs as well. Like you said, I mean, he's going to have to trust the running game more. I think he definitely needs to rely more on the running game when the Chiefs do their RPOs. I mean, obviously, we know that's the joke, is that Patrick is given a chance in an RPO. He's always going to throw the football. Doesn't always need to be the choice, but he just needs to have a little, I mean, and I don't even want to say faith. I think it is trust. I think it's just having trust that the guys around him, and I think he had that 5 years ago, because and something he had obviously said that, in the Kay Adams interview, and we've heard this a little bit from Patrick during the offseason about this being the, potentially the best receiving core that he's been around for a while. He needs to believe that and act like that, because, the Patrick Mahomes that was the MVP was the Patrick Mahomes that would fire the ball around to 9 different targets in a game and spread the football around because he trusted everybody. That hasn't been the case the last couple of years. I mean, he's kind of narrowed it down about who he trusts. He's got to trust, on down the lineup. Yeah. And he's obviously, I think, has got that trust with the 3 receivers that he's hoping to have out there all the time. He's got trust in Juju Smith-Schuster. And just go ahead and trust Jalen Royals. Trust Brashard Smith. Trust whomever is going to be your left tackle. Just have faith that they're going to do their jobs. And I'm going to quote Yoda here, Nick. He's got to unlearn what he has learned. He's just got to, almost put the last 2 years out of his mind. And some of that's on Andy Reid, because Andy Reid's got to give him some new stuff to work with too. Because like you said, they have been way too predictable, and the Eagles absolutely took advantage of that.
I got a quote from you.
Lay it on me.
Trust is earned, not handed.
Sometimes, though, you have to have a leap of faith.
Yeah, there was a leap of faith from Kadarius Toney too.
You don't win a Super Bowl without Kadarius Toney. That's a saying.
He certainly had a good return.
Neo Thomas, do we know if it was a full tear for Josh Simmons? There are some armchair sports medical people on social media saying it was rumored to not be a full tear. I've heard these rumors as well. We've not gotten a straight answer necessarily on it. That's something I definitely, when given the opportunity, would like to ask Josh Simmons, and not necessarily think that I would get the best possible answer on a podium. So that's why I probably will ask it once we get a chance to, meet him one-on-one. That's something that we don't get to do during this time of year. So we'll see. I mean, it doesn't, no law that he has to be honest with us and tell us. He might say that he doesn't want to talk about it, and I'll get it, but it would be telling. And obviously that's something that the Chiefs know, other teams in the NFL know, but we don't know. Albert, what is the significance of July 15th? Of no trade deal by then? Does that mean no deal at all this year? And that's exactly what it means, Nick. I mean, they have until 3 p.m. July 15th to get a long-term deal done with Trey. And after that, he can only play on the franchise tag this year.
Yep. Lightning round.
There you go, Albert. Nick is frozen, it looks like, at least for me. So, but don't worry. I mean, we haven't lost him yet. We obviously can hear him. Hopefully he can hear us.
I can.
And you're moving again.
I was moving the entire time.
Gabe, do we think that Gardner Minshew is versatile enough to back up Mahomes when it counts? I mean, by everything I've seen so far, Nick, I think Gardner Minshew is the most mobile backup the Chiefs have had in a while.
Yeah, he's the most mobile, and he's probably the most accurate outside of Chad Henne.
He's certainly the most mobile backup quarterback that the Chiefs have had since Patrick Mahomes was a backup.
Lightning round.
Alex, without Hill, I would love to have a Dexter McCluster back there on returns. I mean, Chiefs, Nick, do the Chiefs have a Dexter McCluster type on returns?
I hope not.
Dexter McCluster had his moments.
Yeah, in year 1 or year 2, after he started taking hits and everything, he was cooked. What speed he had was gone at that point. So every single guy in the league that has speed, there's a certain amount of hits they can take, and then they don't have it anymore. And it just depends on the size of the guy and what they can do from a strength training perspective.
Albert, any chance Mahomes doesn't get an extension next year? Instead, base salary converted to bonus like this year. Odds for each scenario. We talked a little bit about this and got much more in depth on Sunday, and 41 is the mic. So Albert, if you haven't listened to that, definitely check that out because we do talk about that. But it's not really entirely about just even converting salary at this point. The other part of it too, Nick, is that it's about, I mean, it's time for you to put more money into Mahomes' contract to make him a competitively paid quarterback that the Chiefs have always said. I mean, Dak Prescott and others have gotten their deals, and now it's time to get Mahomes even, but you also need to move the money around much more dramatically than just a salary conversion.
Yeah, you're gonna have to do more than that with where the cap hit is next year at $74 million, and that was why, like you and I talked about on the podcast, that's why it's designed the way it was. So it forces everybody to come back to the table and see where the quarterback market's at, and then readjust accordingly, like they're probably gonna do.
Yeah, the best way to look at Patrick Mahomes' contract is just to just to realize it's a 3-year contract that every 3 years you're going to renegotiate, and when you see a $78 million cap hit, you're going to renegotiate it. And the Chiefs are always going to make sure that Patrick Mahomes is taken care of. So. Question for Nick. Can you only pick one movie to watch starring Tom Cruise? Which movie are you selecting? Alex's would be Last Samurai.
Top Gun. Although Top Gun Maverick's great too. If I have a power rankings, it's Top Gun Maverick, then it's Days of Thunder. Those are your top 3.
Days of Thunder is very high on that list for me, and it might be my pick because as much as I do like Top Gun, Days of Thunder is pretty good. But I like any of the top Top Gun type movies because you got Top Gun, Top Lawyer, which was The Firm, and Top Car, which is Days of Thunder. They're all the same movie essentially.
What?
Yes, the reckless, out of control youngster that with daddy issues.
See, here's the argument I had it wasn't an argument, but here's the point I had for somebody the other day. When you look at Hollywood and it struggles to do box office numbers, there's currently one person that generationally can get people to go to the movie theater no matter what. And Tom Cruise is one of those people. Like Tom Cruise, it doesn't matter if a person's in their 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, maybe even 20s. Like the 20s, that's where you add in Glenn Powell, and that's where you add in Miles Teller and have Lady Gaga do the song for it and everything. But like you take the rest of it, and that's where you have an individual that generationally it just doesn't matter. Like, and here's the most interesting thing I saw the other day. Glenn Powell, when he's on the Rich Eisen show, said he actually was auditioning for Miles Teller's role as Goose's son, and he said that he didn't get the role. Found out on like July 3rd, the day before the 4th of July, and he was bummed about it. But then Tom Cruise met with him, and him and Tom Cruise talked about it, and he said, "What are you trying to?" Because he wasn't sure if he wanted to be in the movie after that. And then Tom Cruise supposedly told him, "What is it you want to be in this industry? What is it you want to do?" And he's like, "Well, I'm trying to be you." And he said, "Okay." So he said, "You know what I do? I pick great movies no matter the role. I pick great movies and I turn that role into something great, even if it's just for a couple minutes. because that's how you become that's how you become a movie star. Is you're in movies that are, you recognize a great movie, you pick the movie, and then you just make whatever role you get in that great.
And I'm not going to disagree. I'm just going to say my one quibble with Hollywood today, and Tom's going to fit into this a little bit, which is that you're Tom freaking Cruise. You can make Hollywood make any movie that you want. So make Mission Impossible once. You don't need to make it 7 times. You missed out on an opportunity to make 6 different other movies. And we don't have anything original anymore. That's all I'm saying. Lightning round. Nikki, do you let Hollywood play in the preseason?
Yes.
I think I do too. I mean, I'm definitely. Yeah, I let him play. Yes. Lightning round. Brian, Trey's a thumper. The question is Kingsley.
That's what we'll find out up at training camp when the pads come on.
I would say that is to be determined, Ryan. I think we're both in that camp. Is Pretty Ricky still a thing?
There is an account out there. Yes.
There's
an account out there.
Is it so? You're suggesting that it might not be Pretty Ricky?
I don't know. I haven't really investigated it very closely.
Oh, Brian, $40 million over the cap. Mahomes, almost 78 million, well, almost 80 million 2026 cap hit, and everybody and their grandma is going to be a free agent. Who do you all cut loose and who do you keep? And specifically for you, Nick, if you're coming.
That's too much to do in a lightning round situation.
It is a big question for a lightning round situation.
That's way too big of a question for right now. Look, the two things you got to figure out what you're going to do with Trey's contract, and then you've got to adjust Mahomes' number. And then after that, like we talked about in the podcast, you're going to have to probably release Jawan Taylor. And then you're going to have to make some other decisions on some guys that are in that $10 to $11 million per year range cap hit wise, and have to kind of shed some cap on that front. And with what the Chiefs have done in the past 2 drafts, they answer those questions for you on what they're bracing for that they may not financially be able to afford.
Yeah, I mean, there's some things that at least the Chiefs telegraphed this year that tells you a little bit about how they're thinking. I mean, when they draft a safety, it's telling you that they're maybe worried about losing the safety next year. They draft a corner. They're planning on losing some corners because they got a bunch of corners who are going to be free agents next year. And there's nobody that's really a slam dunk. I think, obviously one of the more interesting, and once again, I mean, this is a contract year for a bunch of guys. Leo Chenal is going to be an interesting one for me because for the Chiefs, he has just been a really good rotational player. I mean, we think of him as a starter because he has been consistently one of their top 3 linebackers, but the Chiefs are in a base line, 4-3 formation so rarely that Leo doesn't play a ton. I mean, it's not like he's out there playing 70% of the snaps. He played fewer than 50% last year. I mean, maybe he steps up and plays more this year, and maybe he plays himself into, plays himself out of Kansas City because maybe he's going to get paid somewhere. And that's going to be the difficult thing. I mean, the Chiefs aren't going to be able to pay everybody. They're going to have to hope that, some guys maybe stick around or I mean, they're poised, Nick, that they could just end up with a crap ton of comp picks in 2027.
If everybody performs up to contract year level, then that's certainly a possibility.
And that's not necessarily a bad thing. So
then it all depends on who they sign. So worry about comp picks after the fact. Till then, it's just like a rocking chair.
Alistair, if the Chiefs don't get a deal done with Smith, what percentage do you think this kills the dynasty because of the domino effect with waiting contracts with the 2022 class?
If they don't, if Trey Smith's not back in 2026, then it's because they feel comfortable with what they've got on the left side of their offensive line and that they feel like they have a replacement for him at right guard. So here's the reality. Here's what I'm gonna say, and this is what I'm gonna answer every single time going forward with this question until the 15th. Is if they sign Trey to a long-term deal, then they know that that's one of the leaders of their team, that's one of the guys that they can't replace, and they have no interest in trying to replace him. But if they don't get a deal done, then I feel like it's a wait-and-see approach to see what happens with the left side of their offensive line, and is there somebody that can potentially replace him at right guard down the road. And so it's going to be, the reality is it's going to be one or the other.
Yeah, I mean, my concern going forward for the Chiefs for their dynasty window, if you will. I mean, I say this as being a big Trey Smith fan. I don't think Trey's the key to it. I mean, the key is how do you move forward when you're transitioning from Chris Jones and Travis Kelce? Those are the two biggest things that you're going to have to prepare for a future without. And we don't know what this Chiefs team looks like with Travis Kelce. They have not had to play without him for any significant amount of time. So that's the thing. I mean, and honestly, I mean, not even Chris Jones. Chris Jones hasn't had a season-ending injury or anything that's kept him out for an extended period. I know he had the groin in the back that kind of bothered him a while back, but he hasn't had really. I think that's the only season where maybe he might have missed 5 or 6 games. Generally, he plays a lot, and so you've just got to be ready for life without those two guys. I mean, Trey's great, but your dynasty's not coming to an end because of a guard. Your dynasty's coming to an end if you don't have the pass rusher and you don't have an elite weapon at tight end.
I guess step away for a second if you want to take me off.
No worries. So we'll get Nick back in here in a moment. Chris, who on the chat would have a room I can rent? I see the questions on there, but if you see that, you can check in with Chris or Kirk rather, and help him out there. I was really going through the comments here. I'm going to bring up a couple of them because I think one thing about the stadium situation is that there's one thing that the Chiefs did, I know, and maybe some of you responded to the survey. I mean, obviously they had it out there for anybody to take part in the survey, but the Chiefs did the survey to find out what fans wanted and what they see. And I mean, I'm seeing a bunch of you are obviously in the comments talking about how that you don't want to see the Chiefs leave Arrowhead, and that seems to be, I think it's a bigger fan, belief than I realize. I would be very interested to see if and when we get some of the insights from that Chiefs survey, just how much that is going to influence their decision. I've kind of alluded to, I don't know if I said this earlier, but it's been kind of in my mind. I mean, and Mark Donovan told us yesterday that his job is basically to put 2 proposals in front of Clark Hunt, give him 2 options, one in Kansas, probably one in Missouri, and there's, hey, let's face it, there's a possibility that we could be talking about a 3rd option, which would be new in Missouri versus a renovated Arrowhead. But I'm just curious to see. I was saying, Nick, I'm going to be, because the Chiefs have not revealed the results of the survey that they did on Arrowhead and a new stadium. I'm going to be interested because just even based on the feedback that we get here on the show, on the Q&As, I'm really interested in what that survey showed is what fans want as far as Arrowhead goes, because I'm assuming that there's a lot more support about staying in Arrowhead than I probably anticipated.
Did you get to take the survey?
I did not.
Okay. Do you want to know?
I remember the questions, but I did not get to take the survey.
Okay.
But I don't remember all the questions. So
I remember what was in the survey. So from an Arrowhead renovation, the questions that I believe were in the survey at the time was primarily about some luxury boxes down at field level, and then PSL license stuff, and then kind of just more amenities that were going to be significantly out of most Chiefs fans' price ranges. In terms of people that are going to sit in various sections. So I think it was adding more amenities that can compete with other stadiums around the league versus kind of just, and I know they had some stuff for just fans in general, like, in terms of, I want to say restrooms, concourses, stuff like that and everything. And I think they had some of that in there too, but primarily it seemed like it was really kind of focusing on what would you be willing to pay for this? What would you be willing to pay for that? And it didn't, I don't know. It didn't have as, like, I mean, I know there's, for anybody that's ever played the game Madden, even back in the day, I know they had fancy stuff you could do to pick for stadiums and stuff like that, to upgrade facilities and stuff like that. And I mean, stuff that would be interesting that you're having to compete against from home versus, at the stadium is weather, for one. Then them missing a lot of red zone stuff and a lot of other games, a lot of other options. And you took photos yesterday when you were there, didn't you?
I did. So I thought I would try to pop some of them up here and show everybody. Yeah, some of the stadiums of the renovations that are going on right now for the World Cup.
For World Cup, not to get confused with anything.
Not reflective at all whatsoever about the renovations that would take place. Later on.
Yeah, because for people that don't know, they're having to do some stuff to give them a wider field that can hold the World Cup on it correctly at the dimensions that it needs for a soccer field of that level and that caliber. So,
yeah. And a couple of things. I'll get this. Here's a kind of a wider shot of everything. You'll see, and these are, it's hard to kind of maybe see in the picture depending on what device you're on, but they didn't this isn't like taking out all the grass and everything. I mean, they are going to put new turf in. They're going to have to. These are boards basically on down. But as far as the field goes, there's what they had to do is they're putting in some drainage that FIFA requires. That was what was part of last year's construction. As you may remember, if you saw some of the photos from last year, they did some work on the tunnel that comes onto the field. And I guess that would be the southeast corner of the end zone, Reggie Wayne corner down there. They did that for some of the drainage. This is also drainage related. A lot of this on the exterior and down the 50-yard line. Those are drainages. Interesting thing that I was told yesterday, Nick, was that there's a crown to Arrowhead. That football field have, American football fields have crowns, so they're not perfectly smooth. And for Arrowheads, there's kind of crowns off on the sidelines. FIFA requires them to be completely flat. So I guess I don't think it's been entirely determined yet about whether they're going to go with a flat surface for American football, just flatten it out for FIFA, what they're going to do. And one thing really interesting from this, and like you said, they're widening the field. I was never really entirely sure, based on some of the descriptions that had been mentioned, about how much that they were going to need to replace. And so you can kind of see it here. This is essentially about the first 10 to 12 rows of the lower deck on just one side are all the seats that they took out from, as far as taking out the concrete. But these are then some fairly heavy duty modular seating that the Chiefs are putting in. So this extends all the way down from one end zone to the other. But this is going to be removable seating. Now, it's like I said, what we were told yesterday is that this is, they don't want you to think of it as like, portable seating or high school type seating. I mean, it's pretty it's durable. It's designed and tested, obviously, to withstand the crowds that it's going to have. But you can kind of see, even, and I realize I'm like pointing with my mouse that you all can't see. But if you look in like the top right corner of the field, you can see a difference in kind of the color going up halfway up the lower deck. And that's where you can see the kind of difference where the seats have already been put in versus obviously at the other end of the field where the stands are there, but the seats are not in yet. So, and what was, Mark, reminded us again yesterday that was a edict from Clark Hunt, was that he did not want a single Chiefs fan to be relocated during this, that he wanted for the next 2 years that every Chiefs fan that has season tickets or has bought tickets in these spots, that their seat was going to be there. So they're putting it all back together. Now the question about, what happens after FIFA, after the World Cup goes, it certainly sounds like there's, as far as whatever life Arrowhead has, whether it's 5 years or 35 years, they may keep this. They may keep this modular seating so that they can host FIFA events in the future or do some other things. So there's at least a little look about what's going in there, Nick.
Mm-hmm. Did you get anything of the tunnel area?
I've got a video that we can pop in there and see.
Okay.
Depending on how well it works. Now the tunnel, we were on the side with the tunnel, so it wasn't the greatest angle. So I'm not sure how much you'll be able to see anything, but I will pop up my little video that I shot on my silly little phone. And yeah, let's make sure it's the right one. There we go. And it should be popping up here at any moment, and we'll see if it, we'll have to turn down. Yeah, I was afraid. I don't know why my video ends up being choppy. But obviously that's, you can see where we kind of were in respect to the tunnel.
Okay.
So I don't know why the video ends up being so choppy when I put this in.
It's because of the coding of it.
Maddening. Well, so there you go. That was a lot of fun. We'll do that again sometime.
Okay. That's great. Do you have any more questions?
Personally or in the stream?
In the chat.
I'm just going down to see if there's any. See, this is what I finally learned after a couple of years of doing this. A lot of the questions do come early, and then we get just the conversations going on. So it's okay if it's 8:25 and I'm only at 7:29 on the questions, because there's fewer questions in the second half. Unless you want to talk about Days of Thunder and All the Right Moves and Minority Report. We kind of talked about this a little bit, but we'll see if there's any different take on this. From Sandman, all love Trey Smith, but he is not on the level of Chris Lindstrom, Joe Tooney, or Zach Martin. So why should he be paid like them?
I'm just going to point to previously in the 2 times I answered it before in this Q&A.
Oh, and I am so glad, because I was thinking about trying to bring this up and everything, and Jake Katera is bringing it up for us, Nick. Yes, if you did not get enough of Nick and I tonight, we're going to be in studio with Steven St. John and Jake Gutierrez Wednesday morning from 8 to 9 a.m. with New Day with SSJ. Very excited about it, Nick. This will be the first time that you and I have been on podcast or radio in the same room together.
Oh, doing the actual thing, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, doing it, whether like the podcast or a radio segment. We've never been in the same room before, I don't think.
Yeah.
So we'll see if that works. I mean,
this is a trial balloon.
People say that they like the shows and everything, like, because we get along well and we have good chemistry and everything. It may fall apart in person. We don't know.
I highly doubt that's going to be what does it.
That's not going to be what does it.
I know.
I don't
think that's going to be.
I know what would ruin the chemistry, and I'm not even going to bring it up. See, so
okay, all right.
I just don't need you to
leave it a mystery, Matt.
I don't need you to go Nick Transky on me or anything.
I don't even. Oh yeah, the hockey player. For people that don't know, you search. You just search. I don't know, maybe golf course today or NHL golf course. It'll pop up pretty quickly, or NHL golf. And there was an individual that wanted to play through, and the guy was voicing to him it was not going to happen.
He was a little inebriated.
So then he challenged the individual to a duel. Little did he know it's a former NHL player that not only did he throw fisticuffs. He also did his own WWE sound effects while doing the fisticuffs of it. And or maybe the guy behind the camera is doing it, but it sounded like it was the same voice each time. And he knew, and you could tell he's a hockey player as soon as he grabbed the shirt. The way, like, you're like, yeah, he's played hockey at somewhere in his day.
Yeah, I mean, and one of them amused me because yes, I mean, just the chances of you being inebriated and picking a fight with a hockey enforcer. I mean, what are the odds? And I mean, and to their credit, I mean, I think that the hockey enforcer and his mates in the foursome there, I think they gave the guy every opportunity to stand down. I mean, they warned him.
100%.
They warned him, and he's the one that decided that he had enough liquid courage to, fudge around and find out. So,
Matt, that is the perfect way to say that going forward. That is the perfect way. I like that.
I try to keep it family friendly, Nick. I mean, I want to make
that
sure.
That is your saying now. That's your saying. Like, I gotta until the pads come on, and you've got your mileage may vary, but that's the perfect one right there.
Question is, can I say that on Sunday Sound Off?
It depends how you enunciate.
I will enunciate carefully. All right. So yes, if you're in Kansas City or you have the Sports Radio 810 app,
which is universal from what I hear. It's universal.
It is universal. You can get the app anywhere, so you can be listening to Nick and I tomorrow morning. They also podcast that, so if you miss it, you can listen to it then. But we're looking forward to it. Should be a lot of fun. All right. Wrapping up here. Last couple of questions. Mitchell, which AFC West team will have the most productive running backs?
If Mitchell's talking in terms of stats and in terms of carries and opportunities, I think the Chargers might be leading the pack on that front. We'll see what the Raiders do, but I mean, the Chargers have the offensive line. They've got a coach that likes to run the football, and they're going to have a good 1-2 punch there at running back that I think can lead the way stats-wise. The Broncos, I know Sean Payton will give RJ Harvey every opportunity to run all over people. I think the Chiefs use the run when they have to, but I don't know the Chiefs are going to run at the same level that the Chargers will. And the Raiders, they may have a good run game. I just don't know if their offensive line, I don't know if it's where it needs to be for Pete Carroll's balance of how he likes to run.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't know what these rookie running backs are going to be. I mean, Ashton Jonte may be the real deal, but he's not going to have the offensive line that some of the other guys are going to have. I don't. My recollection from draft and the pre-draft experience, I don't think that we were as high on Denver's running back and rookie running back as the Denver Broncos are. So, but they've got an up-and-coming team, so I guess we'll see what they've got. Guess the question is, we're not really talking about the Chiefs in this conversation, are we?
No, I already mentioned them. I just said they run the ball and they have to. They don't really they don't lean on it a ton. It's not their calling card. They're not it's not like the Wet Bandits in Home Alone. That was their calling card.
Hey, if Rashard Smith becomes the best running back in the AFC West, it could happen.
He certainly has speed to him.
And yes, Jake pointed out, and that's what one of the great things about that video. I mean, oops, that was the wrong one.
Don't forget to go back.
Don't forget that. I mean, he threw the dude, and he just kind of tossed him towards the pond, and he rolled into the pond. But then the dude got out of the pond and wanted more. I mean,
well, but that was before the first bows you saw on camera.
Yes.
But like he tossed them. He did a hip toss like WWE, and then the guy went down on the water, and the guy comes back up, and then that's whenever we get the sound effects with each one, and then the guy gets back up, sound effects again. Then he just tossed that dude on the final one.
Yeah, I mean, if you've ever like played like Blades of Steel or NHL on the PlayStation and Xbox, I mean, that was classic, just a hockey fighting pose of just grabbing the guy by the collar and then just pounding on him. I mean, it was almost like if you told me that was just like an AI animation of a video hockey game, I would have believed you because it was perfect form.
You got one more question from Neo at the bottom there.
There you go, Neo. Did you gentlemen pick up Mahomes being a bit low-key peeved in the Kate Adams interview?
I'll be honest, I haven't watched the interview yet. I just saw a couple clips on the old Twitter. So I'm actually going to check it out once we get done here. So I got a feeling it may come up on the show tomorrow. So I feel like that and Trey Smith will be on the show, and probably something about the Pittsburgh Steelers in honor of Jake.
we got a lot of things to talk about tomorrow. So hopefully I did not miss anything. If I did miss your question, always feel free to hit us up on YouTube. You can hit us up on Twitter, ask your questions there if we missed out on anything, specifically me. I mean, Nick's not in charge of choosing the questions or anything, so if anybody missed it, it's entirely me.
I will answer anything you throw at me.
I know, but I don't want to present I'm not trying to get like 400 questions sent to Nick because
Oh, you can send them. I just probably want to answer them. I know people are like, wait, what did you just say? I'll answer them on
that is not an invitation to do that to the man. So
you can do it, but I'm on vacation this week. That's the only reason Matt and I are in studio tomorrow is because I have a couple hours of free time to be able to drive down there and be on the show early in the morning. So it's a little bit of a drive for us from Liberty to Leawood.
Here, I say this, and I clearly missed a couple of questions. So,
oh boy,
we'll lightning round this real quick. Albert, Tranquil, a cut candidate after this year? Possibly, yes. I think he's got one more year on his contract, and it's pretty pricey. You signed Tranquil to be a Nick Bolton insurance, and you draft another linebacker. I mean, although you're also possibly going to, lose Leo too. So, but Tranquil's also getting up there in years, so. It is going to be decision time pretty soon.
Best way I can say is, Albert, like Matt said, they're Tranquil. They originally, you gave all that money to because he performed well, but you also didn't know if you're going to keep Nick Bolton or not. So you structured the contract that if you need to get out of it after Nick Bolton gets his new deal and the money starts coming in at a high rate in terms of cap hit, then you could pull the ripcord if you needed to on that front. But then you also got like you said, you got Bossa. Bossa, in my opinion, he's the long-term replacement for Drew Tranquil. And then with Leo Chenal, that's where, for me, I'm curious to see what Brandon George does because Brandon George is built a lot like Leo, and athletically, he's a very athletic linebacker for his size to where I'm curious to watch throughout training camp what Brandon George can do, potentially as a pass rusher, also in terms of setting the edge, how he does in the run, because I know his ability to draw back into coverage right now and what he can do on that front athletically. So, I mean, there's a lot there that he could be, if they needed to, he could be a long-term possibility for Leo Chenal's position in my book.
Yeah, and Patrick had a couple of questions here, and I feel bad because, the first question, Patrick, sorry, this asked already or been talked about, but heard Nate Taylor say last week if trade deal doesn't get done, today is likely the deal won't be done. Any reason why this might be? Didn't hear what Nate said. He may very well have some reporting or explanation for that. I'm not necessarily there. Certainly, I mean, you are getting to a point where time is short, but there's still time. So it's I wouldn't close the door yet, but I mean the door is closing. And you go ahead, Nick.
Oh, what I was gonna say is like until they hit the certain deadline on the 15th. I don't close any doors. The reason I say that is because like they know where each party's at. They know where the Chiefs are at, and the Chiefs know where they're at. So it's just a matter as there's something that they're having to go over from overall cap hit structures. There's something they're going over for a guarantee. Is there something on that front? And for the Chiefs, the thing you're having to decide, like Matt and I talked about on the podcast, is with Trey Smith, if you get something done by the 15th, that allows you to potentially carry over whatever you save from a cap hit perspective. That allows you to carry it over into next year to either pay for his contract cap hit that year in terms of placing it in the salary cap, or it can pay for maybe one or two other guys. So that gives you the flexibility that you're trying to get for next year. So in that aspect, that that's the motivation to get that done, is so that you allow yourself potentially anywhere between 10 to 15, maybe 18 million, in terms of cap space flexibility with how you structure that year one of this contract to take it down from the 23 to whatever it may be, and then use that to carry over once you're done at the end of this year. And maybe, like I said, maybe that pays for two guys. Maybe that pays for a lot of Trey's contract, to where you're not making some tough decisions like people have asked about tonight.
Yeah, and that's one of the things. I mean, I circle back that if you haven't listened to 41 is the mic from Sunday yet, go do it, because it's one of the things we talk about. Is it's about trying to fit all of these pieces together, and sometimes one domino has to fall before the other. If you want to try and do anything with Trent McDuffie and George Karlaftis and some others, you're not doing it right now unless you get something done with Trey Smith. I mean, the flexibility is not there. You're going to have to wait. And I mean, honestly, there's an opportunity to strike maybe with, I keep saying, especially with McDuffie. I mean, McDuffie right now would be if you want to extend McDuffie right now would be the prime time to do it, because you've got a little bit of leverage because of that 5th-year option. He's going to be ridiculously underpaid for 2 years. You could even control him for 3 years with the franchise tag. And I mean, just getting some guaranteed money and knowing that you don't have to wait for 3 years to hit free agency, Nick. I mean, there's leverage there, but you don't have that leverage because you won't have the flexibility if you don't have something done with Trey Smith. So these dominoes are interconnected. Patrick's other question, this is up to you, Nick, because this sometimes this question takes a while. We've answered it before, about our backgrounds in the past to our current positions.
All right, the lightning round thing. Graduate from high school, interned at Metro Sports, then got hired on as a freelancer. Did that from 2005 until 2012. Then they had a position where they could finally hire me full time as an associate producer. Did that until 2017 when they eliminated positions. Then left there, went to KSHB 41. Had to be an editor for a little bit. Then finally got an opportunity to go be a sports producer and go back to doing the sports producer and sports photography that I used to do. So from September 2017 through March of 2020, or maybe May of 2020, did a lot more of the editing of news than anything else. But then, 2020 did some sports producing, went out and did sports photog work, and then finally full-time again, I don't know at this point, 2 or 3 years ago, to finally do sports full-time again at that point.
There you go. And in high school, I guess I should say I was proud of this, and I still am, Nick. I mean, even though it was a long time ago, I was the first junior to be editor of the Hillcrest Herald newspaper in high school. And I at that point, I had edited more issues of the Herald than anyone else in school history. I don't know if that's still true. Senior year, took a media class, and video is the first year of our program at Hillcrest Television Magazine, which is like the most recognized video and television high school program in the country. They are amazing down there. My teacher, Dave Davis, helped me get an internship at KTXR, the Gentle Giant of the Ozarks, 101.3 on your FM dial. I parlayed that into almost nothing. I mean, I did parlay it into a job. I did manage to start getting paid for my free internship at KTXR. Transferred from Southwest Missouri State University to get my journalism degree at Mizzou in Columbia. Took a detour in a couple of places, went into sales, didn't like that because I wanted to stay in Kansas City and not end up in my friend Greg and had to start in Alexandria, Texas, and some of your other options. I mean, like Cape Girardeau would be a great place to start, and I did not want to do that. So I wanted to stay in Kansas City. Ended up in public relations. So I did that for about 12, 13 years and a couple of stops. And one of my clients, when I then went over to do freelance public relations, was one of my colleagues from Metro Sports, Herbie Tiopi. He left Metro Sports and was starting a Chiefs website that at the time was called Chiefs Spin. was a terrible name, but we got away from it because, I told him he had to change the name. Change the name to Chiefs Digest, and I helped him get this site up off the ground while he was the beat reporter for the site, and I was just the webmaster and the guy that made everything work behind the scenes. When Herbie left, I decided to put back my Big J journalism hat and took over, became the beat writer. That was in summer of 2016. So I'm coming up on 9 years, and 9-year anniversary will be here in a couple of weeks, Nick. So, and then our paths culminate tomorrow morning when we are on Sports Radio 810 at between 8 to 9. I mean, we've just been working for this for the first time to be in the same room together, Nick. I mean, it's taken, a couple of decades for us to get there.
Working in the same room together. You and I literally sit next to each other in the Chiefs media work room.
Well, there's that, but we're not on the podcast. We're not on the air.
And you literally, I am the guy in your IFB whenever you're on Sunday Sound Off.
But we're in different rooms.
Oh my goodness, man.
And you're behind the scenes. We have actually done the podcast from the same building, but in different rooms.
Yeah.
See, so
I can't remember where you were that day.
I was down in your podcast room. We've done it a couple of times.
Oh, yeah. Okay, you're talking about on ground floor. I gotcha.
Yeah.
Or street floor. Sorry, not ground floor.
Yeah.
I gotcha.
I don't entirely know where you were. Were you at your desk, I assume?
Probably. It's probably what I had to do because it gave me, because it was two of the spots in the building. They both gave us hardline Ethernet connections.
There you go.
Logistics right here, Matt. What can I say?
There you go. Okay, one last question, Albert, and I guess I'll also say, Rick, I haven't necessarily given up sucralose. I just haven't had any in a while. But Albert is not a KC native. Is a trip to KC for a day at training camp worthwhile? I think it is, Nick. I mean, I guess depending on how far your travel is. I mean, if you got to have a 6-hour flight or anything, or a 48-hour drive, probably not. But otherwise, yes.
How dare you? Dare you?
I'm just saying.
Albert, it just depends on how long you're here. And I know you're talking about, like I'm saying, like Matt said, when are you leaving exactly? Because, I mean, training camp itself is going to be over by noon. So then you have the rest of that day. So if you're leaving that night, then, or if you're leaving the next morning, we can help you out more logistically on this. But I say, go give yourself a chance to go get some barbecue. Go to the Negro Leagues Baseball Museum, potentially. I mean, I don't know. Depending when you're coming here, there may be a chance for you to go see Arrowhead. Maybe get a tour of Arrowhead. Maybe go to Kauffman. If there's a game, depending on whenever you show up here. And then, like I said, there's plenty of barbecue to go try. And there's some great restaurants around the Kansas City area in general. There's some great breakfast spots around the Kansas City area in general. So just a matter of what you want and what you want to experience while you're in town. And Matt and I can be your Kansas City Sherpas.
There you go. And we've never done it. We probably needed to at some point. Maybe we can squeeze it. I don't know if we can squeeze it in on Sunday because we got a lot to talk about. We need to have a conversation about training camp and the best ways to navigate it and things to do, because I got a lot of ideas that,
You don't do that as a podcast.
You don't do it.
No, I'm telling you how you do it, and you and I will chat about it offline.
Oh, well, then there you
go.
Because
I don't know, it might be video content for you, Matt.
Neo, yeah, let's not talk about anybody talking out of their captain's quarters. I like that terminology, though. Thank you. This is the greatest question I've ever seen, Nick, from Rick. Just got here.
Yeah,
can you repeat everything again?
Yeah, that had me laughing for a little bit. That's why I kept smiling as I kept seeing Rick have that. Like, yeah, can you start from the top like Marty Schottenheimer would make some of the players do back in the day when he didn't like how practice was going?
Yeah. You know what, Rick? Start at the beginning and put it in like 1.5 speed, and you'll be great. So,
if you want to promote it one more time at 8:58 with Jake's tweet,
you even remember the time?
Yeah, of course I remember the time. That's what I do as a producer, bud.
Not that I remember hearing what you said at the time.
Do what?
I didn't hear the time.
8:58.
There you go. I thought you said 8:28, and I was lost. There you go. Yep. Everybody tomorrow morning, 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. on Sports Radio 810. New day with SSJ. It will be Nick and myself with Steven St. John and Jake Gutierrez. Looking forward to it.
That means I got to go to bed early tonight.
I tell you what, I need to go to bed like now. So
yeah, you do.
And I gotta figure out how to do trash between now and then too.
Oh yeah, I gotta do laundry on top of that. All right, well, thanks for reminding me of all the chores I gotta figure out in 3 to 4 hours. Thanks, man.
Everybody, have a great week. If we get any Trey Smith news, you might see us pop up again. We'll talk about it. Okay, you might see me pop up if there's any Trey Smith news. We'll see what happens. But otherwise, Sunday 41 is the mic. We will see you back here, and of course, next week one more at least Q&A before it starts to get real, Nick.
Yep, Camp will be back. Well, we got two. You'll be up there for that first. You'll be up there for season ticket holder day.
Yeah,
but that's not a public practice, so I don't know how much you can report that day, Matt.
Are there members of the public there?
It's a season ticket holder day, Matt.
You can't tell me that it's not a public practice if there's 5,000 people there with phones. That's a public practice.
I don't know what to tell you, Matt. I'm not the one who makes the rules. Good luck to you. Good luck to you.
I'm the one who argues about the rules. So
you are our PFWA.
Exactly. I mean, the road to the rule book runs through me. So,
wow, look at that! Look at that! Look at that tough talk from Matt right there.
Right.
All right. Good luck.
Getting ready to go. I'll be getting ready to go all Nick Taransky on somebody. I think that's his name.
I hope it is. Otherwise, people will be like, who is this guy talking about?
Why is he talking about this guy? All right, everybody. Have a great week. We will catch you all later.